Have you ever wanted to host a Minecraft event, but you have no idea what you're doing? I present to you EventEngine. With EventEngine, hosting events has never been easier. EventEngine handles tasks that would be normally annoying for you to code or do manually in-game. With that being said, let me explain what EventEngine can do for you, starting off with the free core plugin. When using EventEngine for the first time, you'll want to run the command /EventEngine or /EE to pull up the GUI. The free core plugin alone contains stuff like this settings menu, which gives you info about your server. The timeline commands lets you set up multiple commands into one click with delays, which makes managing events easier, as long as the admin who ran it stays on the server. The edit subcommand is what lets you add multiple commands to one slot in the GUI. Moving on, there's also pre-built legendary weapons which anyone can use for their events. In most cases, you'd get new legendaries made for each new event, so these legendaries are really more for the people that don't have the time or budget to get new weapons made. And finally, the admin menu. In this menu, you can modify your own game mode with the click of a button or use game mode shortcuts. You toggle things like PvP, placing blocks, breaking blocks, player drops, losing hunger, a whitelist for operators, global mute chat, deathban, nether portals, and end portals. Not every options are in the admin menu, so when typing out the command /EEAdmin, you'll get a ton of options which will make admin's life easier. These are simple commands to use, so I won't go into too much details about them. So moving on, the EventEngine add-ons, starting off with the Custom Deaths add-on, which lets you choose how you want your players to die during an event. How this works is very simple. Once you open the deaths menu, you can select which custom death you want to use for your event. Here's some examples of more custom deaths that can be used during events. Also, the custom deaths that contain death ban won't affect operators. The menu is faster to use, but there's also commands to toggle the custom deaths. And there's a lot of variations of custom deaths that I didn't completely show, and more that gets added over time. Godmode contains 3 useful things at the moment. Stuff like dropping to half a heart but not dying, keeping a specific player's inventory on death, and damage reduction for a specific player. Here's an example of setting a player with Godmode. Here's an example of setting keep inventory for a specific player. And finally, here's an example of setting damage reduction to a specific player, and here you can also choose how much the reduction should be. The HungerGames add-on, one of the best add-ons you can get if you like setting up Hunger Game events. It holds a good amount of options to make your life easier. Starting off, there's the menu for Hunger Games, which shows you the platform type and 3 buttons to start a Hunger Games event. But the setup will require you to use the commands. So first off, there's how to set the platform type, which you can just leave it to air if you don't want platforms. But I suggest you set it to something. Once the platform is set, to save a lot of time, you can use the automatic command and set a range from how far the platforms and locations will be set, looking towards where you're standing. So just with those 2 commands, you'd be ready to start a Hunger Games event by either pressing the buttons in the menu or commands to start it. Then there's the countdown timer. Then you can release the players, or to make it even easier to use, set a timeline command to run it all at the right time. The reason the countdown and release are separate is in case you don't want to use a timer. Can also set individual platform locations with the set command. Then there's also block decay, which to create a new region just need to add a new name like if it already existed, set location 1 bottom corner, and location 2 top of opposite corner, and make sure to toggle it to true. So here's an example of a DOP player placing blocks in a block decay region. So lastly, when using the remove command, it deletes all platforms and locations unless you specify a certain platform. Now for the Lifesteal add-on. It has everything Lifesteal related that you'll probably need, such as withdrawing, claiming, setting limits, players dropping hearts, setting players' health, and more. Most of the commands are all in the menu, so you'll probably just end up using the menu only. So now I'll show you that it works. Also, the heart item is a fermented spider eye with model data 1, so you know what to set the texture to in the texture pack. Also very important to know, to be able to use the withdraw command, you'll need to give your players the withdraw permission. Now players can withdraw and claim hearts within the limits you set in the menu or with the commands. Can also heal players or set players' current hearts. The Limiters add-on is used for limiting the amount of a specific item or block that you want players to have during an event. That being said, let me show you how to use the commands for limiting items, blocks, potions, or enchantment books. Once you specify the item to limit, DOP players won't be able to pick up more than the limit you set. Here's an example of setting limits on a specific enchantment book. That's the majority of what Limiters currently does, but I add more stuff every week to different add-ons, so I'll probably add more soon enough. LootTables add-on has a lot of interesting options, which I'm going to show you after I'm done fishing. Okay, I'm done fishing. So starting off, there's the LootTables setting commands, which lets you adjust stuff like enchantments, amount in a chest or barrel, and stack size of items or blocks. Then there's the add command, which lets you add normal items or blocks to the LootTables config and sets a ratio for how likely to be spawned in a chest or barrel. If you want to add custom items or blocks to the LootTables, you'll have to use the add custom command, which adds whatever item you are holding in the config with its ratio. Also, when you go check the LootTables menu, you'll find the majority of the things you can toggle and all the normal items and blocks with its ratios on the second page. So when your settings are set the way you want it to load, you can either click the load button in the menu or use the command. The radius is 100 by 100 by 100 blocks around the player. As you see, it loaded all the items from the config in terms of its ratio set, and custom items were also set like I added it in config. And lastly, you can also empty all chests and barrels within 100 by 100 by 100 radius around yourself. The Legendary Pedestals add-on, one of the better add-ons you can get in the store. This lets you set up a one-time craft pedestal with options you can toggle. How it works is quite simple. First, you grab the items you want in its recipe and the legendary. Once you open the GUI, set the legendary in the first slot and the rest in the slots below. If you want more recipes added, you'll need to add it in the config and reload the pedestals. When clicking the pedestal, if you don't have any of the recipe items or you're missing some, it will show a message in chat with the recipes and amount missing. Another option is to set the rotation of the legendary item. There's default upwards, sideways, and diagonal. If you decide to toggle lightning and broadcast, it should look something like this when a player crafts the pedestal recipe. Then clicking the pedestal again will say that it's been crafted. You can also remove pedestals by using the remove command. In the pedestals menu, you have the ability to teleport to any pedestals created, which can help find your pedestals easier. Then there's also a command to change the pedestal block type, which will be used for the new base of the next pedestals that you'll create until changed again. The last important thing to know is, if you kill all entities and pedestals are missing its displays, you can use this permission to fix the displays by re-clicking the invisible pedestal. The Recipes add-on lets you create new recipes which players can then craft with crafting tables. In the Recipes menu, you currently have only two options you can toggle at the moment, which is Broadcast and Craft Once. Also, Broadcast only works on the recipes with a weapon, tool, or stuff like that. It won't broadcast like a stick recipe, for example. So when creating a new recipe, give it a recipe name and set the slot of where it will show in the GUI, and make sure to be holding your recipes. Once you set the items in the crafting table GUI, all you have to do is close the GUI to save the recipe. The remove command is to delete recipes. Then if you toggle broadcast and craft once, here's how it would look. So finally, something to keep in mind. For players to use /recipes command, they'll need the recipes permission. The Scoreboard add-on. This add-on has a lot of commands, but the first thing you'll want to do with this add-on is toggle it to true. The menu basically only shows you the phases and timers that are set up for the scoreboard. So that being said, here's a time lapse of me using the Scoreboard commands. It's pretty straightforward. There's also a permission which lets DOP players toggle the scoreboard on their own, using the /scoreboard command on or off. This will probably be mostly used by content creators. The Teams add-on has two different team sections, Team Commands for HungerGames or Team Commands for Civilizations, which you can see in the menu. First of all, you'll need to give your players the EventEngine teams permission. Then they can start creating teams, inviting people to teams, and more. You can also see info about your team. Only team leaders can kick, disband, or invite people to the team. For joining a team, you can either click the button in chat or type the join command and team number. That is all the add-ons for the most part. Every week more things get added or changed. Check the description to buy add-ons or just to use the main core plugin, and thanks for watching.